All right,
Ready?
that's how we intro this.
Okay.
Perfect.
Welcome back to the DJ G Junior Podcast.
All right, this episode is the Great Depression.
All right.
You mean the economic depression that happened in the 30s?
Yeah, and let's get started with some background.
All right, that would have to start in the 1920s. All right.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. All right. This is a time when the stock market expanded bigger than it ever had before, and not just some people. Everyone was putting their money into stocks. And can we be real? It was bound to peak at the time that it did. Oh yeah.
August 1929?
Yep.
The stock market prices definitely became higher because of this.
Because of the unincreasing unemployment rate?
That and the decrease in production of goods overall.
That was our cameraman Zach. He helped with the documentary portion of this.
There were other factors that contributed to the crash, right?
Yeah, like low wages.
A decrease in consumer spending.
A drought and falling food prices.
And banks having problems, of course. That led to the recession in the summer of 1929.
With all of this, stock market prices were still climbing and consumer spending plummeted, which caused unsold goods to increase in value.
Which leads us to the main event that sparked the Depression. The stock market crash. All right. Fantastic. On October 24th, 1929 is known as Black Thursday. This was when 12.9 million shares were traded and the stock market crashed. On Black Tuesday, which occurred on October 29, around 16 million shares were traded.
A lot of shares lost their value and investors who had borrowed money were completely wiped out.
Factories and other businesses slowed down their production and began to send workers home due to a decrease in spending and in interest.
No one won this deal because wages fell for the people that remained working and buying power decreased. The Americans that were forced to buy on credit at the time fell into debt, caused foreclosures and repossessions to rise.
Along with falling into debt, there were many other effects on individuals. Some of these being people losing their jobs, which eventually led to an unemployment rate of 25% and a lack of food and other resources.
Homelessness increased as well as the rate of children growing up faster, yet sadly, birth rates declined.
The number of women in the workplace increased, but a lot of the banks collapsed, meaning that all of the people lost their savings.
While there were a lot of effects on the people, there was also a great effect on the nation as a whole. For example, it hastened, if not caused, the end of the International Gold Standard Monetary Unit, in which the standard unit of currency is a fixed quantity of gold or is kept at the value of a fixed quantity of gold, and both labor unions and the welfare state expanded.
Unemployment compensation was created with the Social Security Act. The government had increased control of the economy, and the Depression encouraged the development of macroeconomic policies.
Economics figured a way to get out of the Great Depression, like government spending, tax cuts, and monetary expansion. The Great Depression devastated the U.S. economy, and half of all the banks failed.
Unemployment rose to 25% and homelessness increased. Housing prices plummeted 30%, international trade collapsed by 65%, and the prices fell 10% per year. It took 25 years for the stock market to fully recover. GDP fell 6.4% in 1931 and 12.9% in 1932. By 1933, the country had suffered at least 4 years of economic contraction. It produced $57 billion, half of what it produced in 1929.
Well, geez, all right.
Another effect that happened during the Depression was the economic slowdown.
Right. The Depression was at its worst between 1929 and 1933, when the industrial production fell at 47%. GDP decreased 30%, and unemployment rose to over 20%.
There were three common beliefs that were made with the Great Depression.
The first one being that the banking systems were unsound, and that the second one being that the nominal interest rates were approaching zero, meant that the Federal Reserve policy was loose and ineffective.
And lastly, were the tariffs on wars were primarily responsible for the spread of depth of the Depression.
The 30s American capitalism in simplest senses stopped working. America's free market economy failed to make Americans attain economic success easily. This was during the 30s to 40s.
In the early 1920s, consumer spending had reached an all-time high in the United States.
And American companies were mass-producing goods, and consumers were buying them. And that finishes our episode on the Great Depression. Can we move on to mine now?
Yeah, we should
Mhm.
probably help you with
Okay, but I don't want to talk about it.
that. Oh, it'll be
Oh,
okay.
it's fine, it's
No,
fine.
it's not. No, it'll be
It's
okay.
fine.
I promise you. Join you down here.